Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today's video, we're gonna do a 1-year transformation on my client Henry. So starting off the haircut, we're gonna have to get rid of most of this hair on the sides and ridge area. So we're gonna start out with a 2-guard closed, making sure to debulk everything as much as possible. When you're going down with the grain, you wanna make sure that you go below the ridge line. So make sure not to go above it and create another guideline that's gonna be hard for you to close. After you guys debulked as much as possible with the 2-guard closed, we'll then debulk some more with the 2 open and making sure to not touch the ridge. We're gonna do a slight drop right near his calic, so that way when we do clip over comb, it's not gonna mess up the fade and keep the gradient as tight as possible. After we're done with the debulking, we're then gonna spray our client's hair. We're gonna try to get it into the same style that we're gonna cut it in. So he's gonna try to do a comb over after slicking it back for a year. Don't pay attention too much to the style because it's gonna take a little bit before it gets into the natural shape because it's been slicked back for a year straight. Now that you have it to where you want it styled, we're then gonna move into clip over comb. What I like to do here is I like to scoop out as much as possible, and we're only gonna be cutting a 1/4 inch at a time. We're gonna do it on both sides, so that way it's going to debulk the ridge enough so that way towards the end we can clip over comb again just to keep a tighter gradient. So for the top part of the head, I know a lot of people have their own sectioning. What I personally like to do is I like to keep it very simple. So I'm gonna divide the top of his head into 4 different sections. The top left is gonna be the longest, so we're only gonna cut around 2 to 3 inches. And then for the next 2 sections, which is gonna be the middle and then right section of his head, we're going to cut it a little bit more just because of how the head is shaped round. We want to make sure that we're going to angle our fingers kind of like a slanted right. Then for the last section, we're going to cut the most because that's what's going to connect it to the ridge. After that, we just move into cross-checking. So we go from front to back, then from right to left. Just making sure that we get the top half as even as possible. Once we're done that, I then like to texture a little bit with some texturizing shears at the very top. I usually like to do 3 to 2 cuts of the textured shear. Again, he's been growing out his hair for a year and it's been slicked back for a year. So we want to make sure that we're going to throw in a little bit of pomade to hold the style of the comb over. I'm going to be using my own pomade that I've been making. It's going to have a nice hold and it's going to be strong enough to keep it in style while we do the rest of the haircut. So getting into the fading process, we're gonna go in a little bit above the C point. We're gonna go in with our no guard open. I like to divide the haircut by sections. So I'm gonna go through the right side and then left side and then back of the head with my no guard open. And then right after that, we're gonna switch over to closed no guard. Since we're gonna keep a tighter fade, we're gonna do 1/2 inch below instead of a full finger length below. So really make sure when you have your no guard closed to flick out as much as you can because the lever play is gonna be pretty precise. Once we have our guidelines in, we're then going to use trimmers to get rid of the rest of this hair. We're going to go down first and then up, so that way we can get ready for our balders. As you pay attention to me using the balders, make sure to really pay attention to how I'm flicking right before I hit the no guard closed guideline. I'm flicking out as much as possible because I don't want to leave a bald line. If you guys end up having trouble with the bald line, you can always go back and just tap it with the top foil shaver. You want to tap because you want to make sure that you're not leaving the foil shaver in there long enough to create another bald line. Moving into lever play, I can't stress enough that you guys want to keep this as tight as possible. We're going for a really tight gradient, so flicking out is really important. You really got to make sure that right before you hit that top guideline with your no guard open, that you flick out as much as possible to not even touch it, so that way you don't start pushing the fade higher. When it comes to lever play, it mostly comes with practice. You have to understand how to use your flick. You basically want to use your index and middle finger to flick out, and then having your thumb as a control. Keep your wrist as loose as possible, and then you want to use a scooping motion. Also, since it's a tighter fade, don't be afraid to go back a little bit and then use your balders to tap out some guidelines you see that you missed. Again, remember to tap to get the bald line out. All right, so now we're coming to the part that I pretty much hate the most, even to this day after cutting hair for 10 years. You want to flick out with the half guard open, and you're going to try your hardest to not go into the section of the ridge. When you work on the left and right side of the head, it's a little bit easier because the sides always fade out faster than the back, just because of how dense the back is. So again, try your hardest to flick out with the open. It's just going to save you time and headaches when you go in with the one. For the half close, I'm not keeping the blade flat. I'm actually angling it a little bit out, so that way I don't create a new guideline. You basically want the tips of the blade angled, so that way it's the only thing that's touching the line. Almost done with the haircut, and we're gonna go in with our one open. It's actually gonna be our last clip, and then we're gonna go back in with clipper over comb. Instead of clipper over comb going from side to side, we're actually gonna go in an up and down motion. But first, let's get our one open guideline set all the way throughout the haircut. Once that guideline is set, we can then move into our one closed. The one closed, I do a little bit of corner notching just because of Henry having a little bit of dark spots here and there based on his head. Again, for corner notching, we're just going to use a quarter of the blade, left or right. If you have any troubles with the one and you still see a line, you can always go back in with our half guard and then use open to corner notch any dark areas that you see. If you still see any dark spots, just make sure that you use a lower clip and just corner notch, so that way it doesn't put a new guideline in. Make sure not to keep the blade flat. Don't freak out, it's only two clips. It's only the half guard and the one, and then it's clipper over comb. Now we're just gonna do some finishing touches with clipper over comb. Again, we're gonna go in up and down motion instead of side to side. It's pretty much our last detail because the fade is so tight. And if your client wants, you can just use your detailer so that way you can line him up. I like lining him up because I just think it adds a little bit of extra detail. He doesn't need anything when it comes to his widow's peak. He just needs his sides done. Also, you see that I'm using a taper comb. You want to use a taper comb. You want to use as many teeth as possible, as tight as possible. A regular comb will not do it because the teeth are way too wide. Take your time with this and make sure to angle it. Don't keep the comb completely flat across. Tilt the wide teeth angle up a little bit so that way you can just get the corners of the small teeth section in the taper comb. So you only want to use 25% of the comb, and it's going to be the furthest right side where the teeth are the tightest. So wrapping up this video, guys, that is an entire year's worth of hair growth that Henry was able to let me cut. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the transformation. Hopefully you guys learned something new. If you found value in this video, please give it a thumbs up, like, comment, and subscribe. Before the video wraps up, I also want to say a huge thank you to Nick for providing the beats. I'm going to link his Instagram down below, so check out his channel for more beats.